All I can say is that only is very liberating. It's like playing in your not in your home ground. When you play in your home ground, the pressure is that much higher. So if I were to speak about project management, I'll be under deeper pressure than what. So if at all I make mistakes, this is my understanding. Sitting in meetings, trying to understand this subject, which is quite, I would say, both an art and science. It's becoming a science now, but it's a lot of art in about a lot of intuition, a lot of feel, and a lot of feeling to it. So one other thing about marketing I always say is that it will not come if you don't have a soft side in you. If you just be a hard numbers driven person, you really are not going to get your marketing right. So a lot of us have to try to develop that side of the person if one were to be clearly looking at this. The topic which was given to me, it had two names. In fact, it had Gandhi as well as C.K. Prahalad. And I thought long and hard about it, and I said, listen, Gandhi's philosophy is so encompassing. I can't just, I can't do justice even to that. Let me just stay with it. And then, we all know C.K. Prahalad. He spoke a lot about this. He made this entire topic of BOP popular, but really the icon of BOP has to be Gandhi himself because he literally made millions understand a concept, not a product. I mean, what a brilliant man. I mean, he really made people understand freedom. I mean, that's a far more difficult thing to do than to take a product like, water purifier or a salt which we sell to masses. And that's a brilliance of the man. And there are many lessons we can learn from that. Firstly, an advertising about my company. We operate in three business. We call ourselves Life. That's what we do. We are in a product category called Living Essentials, which is mainly consumer products. And there are a bunch of guys who do a pretty good job of this. Not all of them the most brilliantly advertised people in the media and other places, but we've got a good team. And the only thing which we've done is that we've consistently increased our market share in key categories. And I remember when I joined this company in Tata Salt, we were about 19% market share. Today it stands at about 60 to 65%. The number one and number two brands are with us, and because we couldn't grow the first brand fully, so we launched the second brand to attack it, and both grew. So we had a lot of debate about how can you grow two brands, but now we have a lesson how to manage two brands within your family in the same product. They think of launching the third brand. We also sell water purifiers, which is part of this portfolio, and we've just started to sell pulses, branded pulses. We are learning the game, and we really don't know how it's going to progress. Very exciting business area, growing compounded every year at about 16% plus, and tremendous power, because this is something where if you can create a brand, now we realize the amount of power you have in the marketplace, unlike the other two vectors which I'll come to. The second piece of business is the industrial chemicals. This is the birthplace. We are really an industrial chemicals company, which is why you've got a non-marketing guy speaking in front of you, because that's what we always were, and that's what it's a big chunk of our business. This is truly a global business. We are present in 4 continents, in Europe, Africa, Asia, as well as in United States. And we got a tremendous presence here. We're the second largest company in one product, which goes into making glass. Every piece of glass you drink water from has a bit of Tata in it. And when you wash your clothes every day, there's a bit of Tata in it, because we are the key suppliers to Procter & Gamble, Unilever. So, but we've had this strong association with these brilliant marketing companies, and from whom we learn, which has gone into our consumer team. The third piece of business is very clearly focused at what we traditionally think of as the bottom of the pyramid. This is farm essentials. We cover about 80% arable land of India. So that's a tremendous coverage. We probably have the largest footprint in rural India than most companies have. Now, we are not known for it. We don't talk about it. We've got the single largest rural retail network, which is profitable. Not many people make money off rural retail, but our rural retail, which has been in existence for the last 20 years, has been profitable from day one. And it's 700 stores spread over, I think, mainly in UP and Haryana, Punjab, and in West Bengal. We actually service the market as Ganges flows. That we feel takes away the vagaries of monsoon. But otherwise, through our company Rallis, we probably run one of the finest rural marketing networks in the country. And really, out of the rural brands, when you look at farm input brands, out of the top 10, 7 belong to us. So we really believe that we don't call ourselves a branded company, but we have discussions inside, we speak about brands. So I just think that's a mindset of the company. So that's life, living, industry, and farm essentials. That's about us. We're about a 15,000 crore company. We also have built an innovation center which does new products. One of the new product, Tata Swatch, came out of the innovation center. And we are also in the process of launching new, and I'll tell you what the innovation means for bottom of the pyramid, because I think there's a strong lesson when we all look at innovation that you cannot address bottom of pyramid without innovation focus. Just giving you a context, you don't have to look at all of them. I think whether you're a CEO, CMO, CXO, any piece, you cannot escape that there are about, in my view, about 6 forces operate impacting us today. And I think you got to be, I'm going to pick only 2 or 3 of this. I'm not going to speak all about it because we don't have time. Clearly, you cannot do activity without understanding the economic landscape. And today's economic landscape is shifting. And the broad headline is that the focus is on Asia, but the focus is also shifting back to US. US is really bouncing back. If we think that US is in trouble, US is no longer in trouble. And Africa is a new frontier. I think companies have to look at this as a part of the landscape. And Africa is still a virgin territory, and a lot of what we do has relevance for that continent side. So I want to leave that thought with you all. The issue about human capital, I don't want to underestimate. I think whether within your company or in your extended arm, whether you talk about your channel partners or you talk about your advertising agencies, communication partners, the hunt for the best talent is out there, and I think companies have to rethink the way they deal with human capital. And bulk of the innovation and the way you want to address the bottom of the pyramid cannot come if your human capital is not really tuned to deliver that end result. So there's a need to work with your teams when you want to encourage them to work with the bottom of the pyramid. What differentiated Gandhi? He could actually deliver a lot to his masses through the troops. His human capital, which was Congress in those days, really delivered on the ground. So if you can't energize your human capital, you can forget about the bottom of the pyramid. This is a statistic which I just want to leave you with. India is a great story. So this is a chart we use internally, and this is just to give the fact that we are in a very high growth sector. So Indian born in 2009 is going to consume 13 times more than what Indian born in 1960 was. We had a meeting with our Planning Commission Deputy Chairman Montek Singh Alwale. He said, listen, is your company ready for $1 trillion to be added in 10 years, which took India forever? So the first trillion took forever, which is about 2-3 years ago. The next $1 trillion will be added in 10 years. Is your company ready for it? Are you people ready for it? And that's the thinking we need to bring, because that change is happening. That change, in a sense, cannot happen the way it happened in the United States. It cannot happen in the way it happened in Europe, because that change needs to be sustainable, because already apparently we're consuming about 1.2 times the planet's resource. And if India and China grew at the rate they're growing, we'll need 3 planets to support 1 planet, which is impossible, right? You don't have 3 planets. So hence, we need to focus on sustainability, which effectively means you got to look at social and also the environment issues, and products and your services which you deliver have to encompass this, which is why this whole concept which was highlighted, that it's a philosophy, it is not just a bottom of the pyramid for a definition that you're addressing a market. It's about a philosophy which says that I'm going to encompass the social needs, I'm going to encompass the environment issues, and my product is going to be greener than before, and these things will mean a lot going forward. So if I want to leave a message on this chart, I just want to say that bottom of the pyramid is not for fun. It's also a focus on green. It's also a focus on sustainability. I think keep that in mind, because products which lasted maybe 5 years now may have to last 50 years, and they must grow with the changing needs. The second thing I wanted to highlight out of that 6-7 forces I spoke about is this digitization and technology. I think it's a huge shift. It's a huge shift. If you just take work systems, it's a big shift, but I think even in the product and delivery, there's going to be a huge shift. We underestimate the power of technology, and I'll come and speak to you about what relevance it has when we sell in rural markets, because we've used this very, very smartly to cut through the clutter, as I call it. And very simply put, just a stark example, how not many of us visit banks anymore. The need to visit bank has gone away because of spread of internet, because you can do what you need to do with a bank sitting at home. And that's the kind of shift which is going to happen. It's going to actually make a lot of people irrelevant. So entire workforce is irrelevant overnight. At the same time, it's going to throw up new opportunities for people who will deliver on the ground. So focus on this is very, very critical. The third issue, which is the reality, is that it's a very democratized world. People can make choices because now it is many to many which you can speak. It is not one to many. It's not one monolith which talks. And that creates a confusion, but that also is a tremendous force. And if you can harness this force well, I think it can work to your strength. If we don't, we will end up in a mess. And that's the whole big deal. And social activism, in my view, or let's say social media, whatever you want to call it, and spread of internet, India is going to have 300 million internet connections very soon, and it's going to only spread. And what form and content it takes, we don't know. When you say India has got one of the highest connections of mobile telephony and it's shifting to smartphones, we've seen today, for example, smartphone prices collapsed by 1/4. That's a tremendous shift on what you can do in the advertising, marketing, and development space with your consumers. And that's going to accelerate going forward. And lastly, on innovation, I think there's a tremendous convergence today of markets, business models, and capital and labs, which provides for new solutions. So the reason I'm speaking about it is the market starts with servicing a need, and creating a product or service. And hence, there's a huge convergence. The advent of private equity, venture capital means you can test your models at low cost, have a quick failure and exit, or create a tremendous shifts in the marketplace. And innovation is something which is going to drive stuff going forward. And I also have a view that without innovation, you really cannot address the bottom of the pyramid. And I'll tell you the reasons why a bit shortly. Reflecting back, I was just, give me a minute, You need to drink water before speaking of Gandhi. He's such a big man, such a big person. I mean, at the end of the day, he's such an inspiration for all of us. You're truly blessed he was born in this country. And the 5 things which are takeaways on Gandhi, I mean, this is something which several of professors who told me when I was young, and this still remains the 5 fundamental principles. He was focused on Satya, Ahimsa, Swaraj, Antayodhya, and Sarvodaya. And let me start with the bottom 2. Sarvodaya is serving everybody. You must serve everybody. And Antayodhya is serving the last person in the queue. And these were core of his entire philosophy, that you cannot build a nation if it doesn't focus on these 2 elements. He also was focused on Swaraj, but the Swaraj, his definition was not liberation from British. His issue was individuals liberating themselves. When you read his philosophy, his book, he almost goes to individual liberation. If you look at Facebook or if you look at Twitter, what they've done, they've liberated the individual. And I think that's the liberation he wanted, liberation of thinking at an individual level. And certainly Ahimsa is fundamentally, when you look at Ahimsa and the concept, you can clearly embody sustainability, going green. All those concepts are pretty much there, because he's saying don't disturb other living things, make everything all embracive. And at the core of his philosophy was the truth. This is the heart of everything he did, and truth well understood and well told. And this well understood is a lesson, we understand this very little, and truth well understood is spending a lot of time with your consumers, with the team which has a need, to really know what that need is. I think from there comes out a whole ideation for new products and new services. End of the day, if you pick all these 5 words and 5 simple words and just dive deep into it, it just lets you into 3 fundamental outcomes. One is it's all-inclusive. It's a very inclusive process. It's a very sustainable process, both in time and in the form. So it'll go on for a longer time. And it empowers everybody. Nobody feels disenfranchised. Everybody feels energized. Everybody feels empowered. And I think that's the power of these 5 concepts. And I think this concept can be applied in every product, function, area you're in, to build fundamentally a very, very strong pillar for your organization or your business model. And this is the C.K. Prahalad version of BOP. I'm not going to speak a lot about it, but fundamentally he speaks about awareness. You need to create awareness. You need to create access for your product. One of the things we have learned today, access is a big difficulty in this country. We underestimate the power of, let's say, the difficulty of getting access to people. In fact, it's very expensive. Uh, Affordability, we all understand what it means. And also make it available. And the continuous availability is a big deal. We find that even today in a small product like Tata Salt, availability is a big, big issue. But again, if you envelop this entire 4-5 concepts and say what it means having inclusivity at the center of your philosophy, having sustainability at the center of philosophy. Thirdly, looking at, does it empower your customers? Does it really provide them with that? And this looks a bit esoteric, but there's also another concept which fundamentally we speak about, the 5 Ds of bottom of the pyramid. And one of the D which differentiates in that concept is the thing called dignity. And does it provide dignity to all your customers, or does it sort of divide them? And the whole issue is to avoid the division and to provide dignity. This whole issue of selling for upper class, lower class, I think that whole class system is something we need to sort of think out of. We should get our mind beyond that. So what are our learnings? Our learnings are the following. I think if you want to really look at bottom of the pyramid, your room for error is very small. Because it's such a tough market. You cannot go, you need to think deep and hard. You got to quickly learn. You got to be very flexible and be willing to change. And one of the first fundamental foundation is need identification, that what Ram Charan many times calls the thinker bullseye definition. And I think that bullseye definition is something teams need to spend a lot of time. When we sat down for defining our water purifier, we had many, many ways of defining it, but the simplest is one which, in a meeting, our chairman told us, Mr. Tata at that time, he said, listen, I think this has got to work in houses which don't have running water, which don't have electricity access. Can you build something? So it sort of, that became the kernel of an idea on the bullseye definition. But of course, it got fine-tuned a lot more, and I'll come to the several issues which it got fine-tuned into. The second learning we have is aesthetics really matter for both bottom of the pyramid and top of the pyramid. We had this whole concept of building a water purifier below, which was affordable. Our target was about $10. We finally hit about $20. But the debate all the time was fundamentally the initial concepts which came looked very cheap. So I think we should move away from this. What even Shiv of Nokia calls the cheap and cheerful. I think we need to look at really something which is aspirational. And it can be done. We've applied ourselves. If you look at Tata Swatch today, it has won many design awards. And it's an outstanding product which if you put in a house of a multi-millionaire, it'll stand there well, and it'll not be criticized for its looks and aesthetics. At the same time, if it goes to a poor man's house, it still stand well, and it's a pretty sturdy product. So aesthetics costs a little bit, but it adds tremendous value. I think what we don't do in this country is we've got all the engineering talent, but we don't spend enough on design. We don't think through design of products. We don't think through design of the entire system, and then later on we suffer. It's like you want to buy an airline ticket. Why should the airline ticket be rectangle? We can't think about what is a different aesthetic feel of it, touch and feel of the product. How does it feel in your hand? How does it appeal to 5 senses? I think CEOs of companies need to spend a lot of time on this entire appeal and aspirational product, and not give up on the fact that it can be low price, but yet be highly aspirational, highly appealing to 5 senses. And poor are no different. I think just because they've got less money doesn't mean they have less sense of aesthetics. They also can appeal to the same aesthetics. What I do agree is awareness is very, very important. We still have struggled with our product. Many of the people in the village think that drinking purified water makes them weak. Their body loses the resistance which they have naturally, and pure water is meant for only children. This is the misconception. We have to go from village to village to correct this misconception. And this cannot be done by advertising, because this has to be done by word of mouth. You need hands and legs in the field, and that's expensive to get hands and legs in the field. So that brings me back to the whole issue of you need a mobilizing organization which believes, and a lot of people are willing to work this for a cause. If you can convert your product into a cause rather than a product, I think then you can achieve that at a very low cost, because a lot of people will join hands with you. Second learning we had when we launched Swatch was PR is a big deal. We actually got a huge PR for our launch, and post-launch, every city we went to, we don't know why, but we actually really, really underestimated the power of PR. When we went to retailers, to customers, they didn't recall any of our advertising. They actually recalled the news. So to us, it became very apparent that the part which we ignore, which is the non-traditional, below-the-line activities, actually have a big impact when you look at bottom of the pyramid. They also have a big impact in other parts of the business, but certainly they have a big impact on this. You have to have a buzz around the product, what I call as interest buzz, but that can come only through storytelling. In villages, they understand stories. We had to sell this concept. I'm not going to speak about a product. We had to sell this concept that the fisherman shouldn't kill the whale shark. That is a project we were working on. Now, it's a very difficult concept. You can't go and tell the fisherman that, cut your net, your only source of livelihood, and release the whale shark because it's a female whale shark which is pregnant and it needs coming to Indian shores to give birth to young ones. And it is something which is today on the watch list of UN species which are dwindling. They're very difficult to do it. So we thought long and hard about this, and it comes to Gujarat coast, right? We really didn't know what to do. We did 1 year of campaign, no result. Then finally someone hit upon an idea. He said, why don't we go to some spiritual leader and speak to him about this problem? So we went and met Murari Babu. Murari Babu had a brilliant idea. He actually named the whale shark as the daughter-in-law of the house, the daughter who is coming back to the house. And he spun a story to say to the fisherman, he would go from fishing village to fishing village and say that if your pregnant daughter came, would you kill her? And fisherman would say, no. Then this is no different. It is a pregnant daughter returning home, and please save her and give up your net. Today, fishermen in Gujarat, fishing villages, actually cut open their nets. Of course, now government has followed it up with funds for them to release this, to compensate them for cutting the nets as long as they provide proof. But power of storytelling is fantastic. This conveyed the entire message, what we're trying through advertising, media, everything. So we now know if it's a difficult concept, go back to the basics of what our forefathers, we learned our values through storytelling from our grandmothers. I think that's what we got to go back to. Secondly, seeing is believing. This is something which we know from our Tata Salt experience. We sell that salt on the concept that it dissolves completely. We show it at every mela which is organized. This is one part which we struggled hard. When water purifier design, our chairman asked us, how do you know the water purifier is no longer effective? Because it could only purify 3,000 liters. We said, no, the person has to keep count. After about 1,000 days he's got to throw it open, and then he's got to buy a new. He said, that's not something which I want, because then you're leaving it for the chance for the user. It must happen in the device itself. And secondly, he said that how does a user know that it is impure or pure? And of course, now we have a kind of a meter which shows how much efficacy is left, but we still haven't reached the point which he raised the question. We don't have a solution. He always asked us, can you create a paper or something which you can dip into water and say whether it's pure or impure by the color change, that even a villager can check. I think these are the kind of things we should incorporate in our products for the villagers, the features which allow him to know what it is at the low cost and very quickly. People have apparently done it for BP and for diagnosing several health issues, which a lot of articles are written about. I come to the one which I called access. This has been the biggest issue for us, and I just think we were very naive when we launched Tata Swachh, thinking that we will just go all over the country and the product will spread on its own. But distribution has been the biggest challenge we have faced, and there are tremendous last mile issues. We are now working with non-traditional channels, with NGOs, to sort of make sure that we cut through the clutter. We use the traditional channels. The contribution margin anybody looks for in a consumer product is as high as 30-35% margin, because that's when you can start to pay for all other costs. It's a very high thing to say, when you sell a bottom of the pyramid. It doesn't work in that numbers. So think through distribution very, very hard, whatever product and service you are in. Technology, I think, can be used to cut the clutter, deliver your message very quickly. One thing which we learned when we were working on Gromo pulses with our farmers, and we really didn't know what is going to click and make the farmer sell his produce back to us and buy our products, which will go as an input to increase his productivity. Uh, Later on in research, we found out what really made him stick with us was a very simple thing we had introduced, that when he got his payment in a State Bank of India account, which we had opened for him, he got an SMS in his mobile phone that money has been received. That was a big differentiator why he was coming back to us. So you never know which piece of your service which you're adding can really create the difference. Because he said, now I am very sure that money has gone to the bank. I don't have to, if I go to the market, mandi, I get a parchi, I don't know when I'll get my money, but now the money is in my bank, my mobile phone says so. So technology can clutter a lot of clutter. Last thing, I think innovation never stops. For us, when we launched Swachh, we thought we'd done brilliantly. The bullseye definition of the Tata Swachh, we debated long. Should it purify 80%, 90%? Should it purify 100%? 100% is impossible. The water, in the sense that there will always be some microbes, some virus, some bacteria left. And you can purify 99%, it is fine. 85%, it's fine. It sort of takes away big issues of illness. And our chairman asked, what is the toughest standard in the world? We found out it was US EPA standard, which was saying that it should purify to the extent of log 6. Log 6 is 99 followed by 0.9999, 6 dots. And that's the purification I need. And we had to deliver it at that cost. We did deliver, and we thought we'd done a big deal. But then that was only one milestone. We have new challenges like arsenic. Arsenic is a big deal in some parts of India, especially where Ganges flows. Fluoride is a big deal in India. So we have got labs which are working on this. So I think in product, you have to constantly say what I can change, what I can add. Just don't rest on the laurels. Many companies which have said that they've achieved actually have found themselves being thrown into irrelevance. And there are many, many names. I don't want to talk about them. Even mobile phone, there's a wonderful name which was highly relevant, is highly irrelevant today. But those are the kind of shifts which happen, and they happen overnight today. So focus on innovation constantly. Just because you're in a category, it doesn't mean you'll remain relevant. Lastly, I think one of the things which our team is blessed with, and that's what I'm thankful about, we really have that with us. Our ability to learn is dependent on one human quality we value, which is humility. We know we don't know all the answers. We're always searching for the answers. We can ask the questions, but we don't know the answers. I think it's a gift. If you can build that in your team, I think you'll always be successful. I hope this was useful. Thank you very much.